All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Mind of George show. I'm really excited because I have a new friend. I would call him my BFF. I have to earn my way into that bucket in his life, but I might crash his farm one day and come eat the homemade goat milk and goat cheese and all those different pieces. But I'm incredibly excited. We're going to unpack who this incredible gentleman is. He could be considered Mr. Rogers if you look at his passport photo, which is something we might have to talk about, or just walking heart and kindness. And one of the things I told him today is that you just radiate love. And it is no surprise to me how the success has begotten itself when you operate like this incredible guest. And I'm going to get into his intro in a minute. But first, I just want to warm welcome Brent. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Oh, thanks, George. I think that's the warmest welcome I've ever gotten on any podcast. So appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome, man. I really think we need to bring Mr. Rogers back. I really do.
Oh, he's here. He's here in spirit for sure.
I love it. And I wanna set the stage for everybody listening before I even get into your bio. But you, in my personal experience, I have gleaned a lot personally just from short conversations and perspective. And also I'm halfway through your new book, but as somebody who has been in every bucket from, working as a physician to working with Martha Stewart to having an incredible company that is founded and protected by values to having an incredible book about goats, which I love. You have such a breadth of knowledge and perspective. And I'm just curious from your perspective for everybody listening, knowing most of them are entrepreneurs, but if they were to actually take what you share today, whatever
hmm
we get into, and apply it to their business and to their life, like with values first and focusing on team and focusing on customers, like what do you think would be possible for somebody listening?
I hope two things come out of the conversation. One is that people realize that information is not synonymous with wisdom.
Mm.
We are bombarded with too much information in the world, and we need to understand how to convert it into wisdom, the relevant bits and pieces of it. And the second, and I say this really for entrepreneurs or even business entrepreneurs, you have to, at some point, hopefully early on, define what your personal measure of success is going to be and work toward it. Because that's what's going to lead to contentment. And it doesn't mean that your measure of success is the same as someone else's. But we're so used to comparing ourselves to what we see on social media of what is success. And guess what? You could reach that and still not be content. So it's better for you to understand what makes you personally satisfied up front and then work specifically toward that.
See, I called it. And I also love the inception of your first statement of that information is not synonymous with wisdom. And that, my friend, is pure wisdom,
Oh, thank you.
because that tickled and got my serotonin going. And I was like, oh, I feel called out and called up. And luckily I'm on that path and I love it. And, for everybody listening right now, I need to give you some context for this incredible gentleman. And I was joking with Brent before we hit record. I could turn a conversation with Brent into an 8-part series, and part one of the podcast would just be his story, because I've yet to see an avenue or an arena that this man has not played in. And he is a doctor. I will call you doctor, but Brent, and his last name is Ridge. For all you doing your Google research with your thumbs aggressively right now, I'd invite you to pay attention. We'll have a place to connect with him after. But co-founder with your partner of Beekman 1802.
Mhm.
You started as a physician at Mount Sinai, I believe, and then went from that to the health and wellness division at Martha Stewart Omnimedia. And then you're like, I'm going to buy a farm, but I'm not going to buy like a farm in a bougie area. Like, I'm going to go to Sharon Springs, New York, and I'm going to buy a farm in a not place that is like set up for sustainability. And we're going to plant our roots here. And then we're going to start by making goat milk soaps and gourmet cheeses. And now that is the beginning that leads us to Beekman 1802 now, which is a 100+ employees, I believe. It's an incredible lifestyle brand. It is driven and run by values. Everyone on your team I talk to, it is felt all the way. It's by premium retailers worldwide, record-setting launches, an incredible community, and a book about goats. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay.
A book about goat wisdom,
Goat wisdom.
which we learned from goats.
Which we learn, which I'm not joking. I know we're gonna get into this in the show, but I wrote one of these down earlier because I tell everybody like I'm in the book, and I want you to just think about your business for a minute and think about some roadblocks per se that you've bumped into your business, and tell me how this doesn't land as the fortune cookie of goat wisdom. You need to taste everything, but you
Mhm.
can always spit it out later.
That's
And
right.
so I'm excited for us to learn how much wisdom we can glean from goats because in this list, it is so good and so profound. But I'm curious for you, and I think this will frame it for all of us to start. When we go back to like buying that farm in
Hmm.
New York, like what was it like in the beginning, like straight to the start? Like when did the farm become more than a home and like you started to turn it into a brand?
Hmm. Well, we, as you said, I at that time was working for Martha Stewart. I was heading up the new health and wellness division that the company was trying to get off the ground. And my partner, now husband, was in advertising and was a writer. And, we had bought this farm property in 2006. Now, I know a lot of people listening were not around in 2006, so I'm going to ask people to go into the Wayback Machine. But we were two, like 30-year-olds who had both come from very rural, you know, kind of disadvantaged backgrounds. I was from North Carolina. Josh was from Wisconsin. And, we had made it to New York City, by our own grit and determination. And we were going to be company men. Like we thought we've gotten to these great companies. We have made it. And, in 2006, we're both in our early 30s. And, this was a time period where they were just handing out 0% mortgages, right? And so all of our contemporaries in New York City were buying their houses in the Hamptons and, wherever their second homes. And every autumn, we would go apple picking in some place in upstate New York. We would just open up the map and close our eyes and point to the map blindly. And wherever our finger landed, we would find an apple orchard closest and go to that destination. Well, in 2006, our finger landed on this little town called Sharon Springs, New York. So we drove up there about 3.5 hours north of the city, middle of nowhere.
Yep.
And on our way out of town, after picking apples, we saw this farmhouse, this beautiful white farmhouse. And we said, "Oh, that must be a museum." It was so perfect. And we just pulled in the driveway and we saw the for sale sign in the yard. And on our drive back to the city, we both partially, I don't know, dreaming, I don't know. We're like, we need that farm. We have to buy it. And so we got back, called the real estate agent, started that, the process of investigation and basically ended up cashing in everything that we had ever saved to that moment in our life and took out $1 million mortgage because we were obnoxious to buy this property that we were going to use on the weekends.
Mm.
And shortly after we purchased it, we came up one weekend. Now, you have the name of our company, Beekman 1802, comes from the fact that this farm was built in the year 1802 by a man named William Beekman. So, in this little rural part of upstate New York, it's a very, I would noted farmhouse because it's been around for so long. There just aren't that many structures that are 220 years old. And so word spread very quickly that these two guys from New York City had bought this farm. So it came up one weekend, and in our mailbox was a note, handwritten letter from a local farmer who had heard about these two city guys who had bought this farm. And he said, "I am losing my farm and I have a herd of 100 goats. Could I please bring them to your property to graze? Otherwise, I will have to sell my herd." And we met with him, saw how much he loved these animals and how like they were his life. And we said, "Absolutely, you can come." There was another little cottage on the property. We said, "You can live there, bring your goats." It actually works out great for us because we're only here on the weekends. You can keep an eye on things when we're not here. And we say that that was the original act of kindness that would start our company because jump ahead a year and a half later in 2008 when the recession hit and we all had to pay the price for those 0% mortgages that had been handed out, we both lost our jobs. My division at Martha, which was nascent, folded. Josh's advertising agency folded. And it was like an oh crap moment because we're like, we cashed in everything. We have this $1 million mortgage. What are we going to do? And we literally became the men who stared at goats. We really did, George, because, the farmhouse, 220 years old, it was winter, very drafty. It was so cold in the farmhouse that snow would blow in under the door and would not melt. Like,
Mm,
that's how cold it was, and so we spent a lot of time in the barn because the barn, heated by the goats and the manure and the hay, was actually warmer than the house, and so we stayed out there a lot. And, as you said, one of the lessons that we learned by watching the goats is, people always think goats just eat anything, but that's actually not true. They just investigate the world with their sense of taste. So they
mm.
will put anything in their mouth to taste it and try to understand it and then spit it out after they realize it's not the thing for them. And that's how Beekman 1802 started.
Wow. I just learned a few things I didn't know in my internet sleuthing, and I loved it because you had a reality TV show, right?
Yeah.
I I
Yeah. And
I I was just gonna say, before you go, I wanna hear that, but I also think we could make a movie called The Men Who Stare at Goats.
George Clooney could star in
That's who I was thinking about. That's who I was thinking about.
it. Um, yeah, we did have a stint on reality TV. And interestingly, the way that came about was that we're living on the farm. We had started making our original bars of soap with a neighbor, soap maker Deb, with the goat milk from the farm. And we were just trying to peddle them online originally. And now this was 16 years ago. So
Yeah.
no one was making a fortune with e-commerce
Ecom, yep.
16 years ago. And so Josh said, okay, I'm going to try to go into the city and find whatever job I can find. Like, I'm going to apply for anything. And it was, hard. That was 2008, 2009. Those were hard years in New York City. And he went in to apply for this job that was the chief marketing officer for this network called Planet Green, which Discovery was launching. And he interviewed for the job, and the president from Discovery said, "You know what? You're not right for this job. However, it's so interesting that you are living on this farm in the middle of nowhere. So many other people during the recession are like having to completely change their perspective on life and where they're headed and what they're doing." And she said, "Would you ever let like a camera follow you around as you learn how to do this?" And we're like, "Well, we hadn't thought about it." And we were a little bit hesitant because this was the time period when making fun of country people was the topic du jour in reality TV.
Yep,
You had Honey Boo Boo, you had Swamp King,
yep.
I mean, not Swamp King, Duck Dynasty, like those types of things. And, we were so dependent upon the people in this little community to help us survive. And we said, there's no way that we can do anything that's going to make them come off poorly. And we said, okay, let's talk to the producer that you have in mind. And we told that producer, if you make us the butt of every joke, we will let you follow us along, follow our journey along. And, at the time, we didn't, of course, know what Beekman 1802 was going to become, but it just really captured this moment in time when our company was just starting. So, like, we have a permanent historical record of the first 2 years of our company. And what was wonderful about the experience was that it really did make every single person in our little village of Sharon Springs, New York, look like the hero. It was like Mayberry. Everybody was lovable. When people came to visit our store, and still do when they come to visit our store in Sharon Springs and they see one of the people from the show, it's like they're seeing a celebrity.
Mhm.
And it was just a wonderful experience.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I'm so curious too. Like my heart's just driving this, but you talk about that time and I was becoming an entrepreneur same time,
Mhm.
2008, 2009, 2010, and I was getting out of the Marine Corps, which
Mhm.
my steady 13-year paycheck, and all of a sudden I jump into entrepreneurship. So I started at like ground zero. And, you guys took a big bet, right? And now here we are like 15 years in the future. And obviously, like it paid off. And I know there's a lot of lessons under there, but I'm just curious for you, like, you're living in a barn, right? You're hanging out staring at goats. Like, what were you thinking or feeling in those early days, right? Like the risk, the identity, right? You're like, we're going to bet on ourselves. And I think this might even tie to what you said about success, but I'm just like so curious what that was like.
Well, you know what? Neither one of us would say that we were natural born entrepreneurs. Some
Mm,
people are born with that entrepreneurial spirit. Like that's just their drive. It was forced upon us. And I think even to this day, even as the company has grown, to $100 million company, still we say desperation is the best motivation.
mm,
And we were desperate because we had to pay off this mortgage on the farm somehow. We had made this commitment to Farmer John that he would have this place for his goats. So there was an emotional tie to it. And now, even as you grow a company and you have 100 employees, you have to make your payroll. So every decision that you make is, you have so many other people's lives that are dependent on the decisions that you make. So I think even to this day, we still feel desperate, that we're going to make the right decision always.
Well, I love that perspective. I'm already just so grateful for this conversation because you said something at the very beginning when you were talking about defining success.
Hmm.
And I think what I hear underneath that, and I would just love your thoughts on, is that, desperation worked as a perfect Parkinson's law, but
Hmm.
also the things that you were choosing to do together were values aligned. They
Hmm.
were values driven.
Yep.
And I think that that's missed a lot too. And so I'm just curious on your thoughts about that for the entrepreneur listening, because I feel like desperation does one of two things. It
Mm,
either breaks you because naturally you can't consciously choose the things to do all the time that are out of alignment. So it just strips them away,
mm.
or it deepens your resolve because you're like, I want this so bad. And so I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that.
Yes. And I think that for us, we always from the very beginning, never really looked at our success. Like we never dreamed the company would become as big as it did. Like that was never what we thought about.
Hmm.
We always thought, and this is still to this day, how can we make anyone who comes into our orbit, how can we make their lives better?
Yeah.
So when we first got to Sharon Springs, yes, of course, we're trying to pay off our mortgage and survive, but we did it by helping everybody else in this very impoverished community thrive as well. I think Schoharie County, which is where we're located, is the poorest county, if not the poorest, one of the poorest counties in all of New York State. And when we started our company originally, we were like across multiple categories. We were doing home goods and we were doing gardening and we were doing, of course, beauty and we were doing gourmet foods. And we were growing the company by working with other local artisans in our community to try to help support their businesses and their passions. And that was really important to us because we felt if we could drive economic activity in our community, our whole community would be lifted up, out of this dire circumstances that we all found ourselves in. And that has just always been its guiding principle. And even when we, gone on to much bigger deals, much bigger collaborations. I think the biggest contributor to our success is that we enter every negotiation um, and every outreach thinking, how am I going to make that person better? How am I going to help them achieve their dream? And I don't know if that's our personality. It was never strategy. I think it's just how we were raised because we have subsequently learned that by doing that and by making someone else's success paramount, you reap the rewards in terms of your own success.
Hmm.
And that's just how we have grown the company by
Yeah.
making people successful.
Well, I love it. It's baked all the way in. Like you're like Farmer John. And you're like, actually, we've got you. We've got your goats. You can stay with us. We think you're going to be watching the house. Turns out we're going to be best friends in the near future and we don't know about it, right? But I don't want to be cheesy about it, but there's no transactional essence whatsoever. It's fully transformational, and like I can feel your values and these things that you see, like Beekman 1802, like comes to life for me when we talk, right? Because you guys believe in kindness to everyone.
Mhm.
Even you talking about this, like CEO of 100 plus employees, $100 million company, and we go into every negotiation of like, how can we serve this person, not how can they serve us, right?
Mhm.
And I always
Mhm.
joke with my clients that I say, I'm not allowed to win until you win first. And that's how I do my bit. But that goes all the way back to personal development days where they're like, give away what you want to get. And if
Mhm.
goats could speak, I feel like that might be some goat wisdom. I don't know. We'll just add an addendum. We'll add an addendum.
Chapter 13. Chapter
Yeah.
13.
Chapter 13. My favorite number too. How perfect, right? And I'm curious now, you've talked a lot about kindness, right? What are some other the and actually I'm gonna frame why I'm asking this for everybody listening. I think all too often it's easy to look from the outside and be like, you have the Midas touch.
Mm.
We did this show. We have the book, we have the brands, we have these partnerships, we have all these things. And I was like, but I would submit that they are more so the values touch. They're a byproduct of the values, right?
Mhm.
Because
Mhm.
the success follows the values, the intentional action of alignment. And then after the equal sign is like, oh, here's this result, but it's not
Mhm.
overnight. And so I'm curious for you in the position you're in of like growing this whole thing. Besides kindness, like what are some of the other values that you live by, breathe by, embody, make business decisions by?
Honestly, kindness is always our golden, our kind of North Star. And if you think about how broad the idea and the concept of kindness is, you can see how that can be the one thing. Um, because whether you're, I would say we always try to think, how much kindness are we putting into the world?
Mm.
And even if you think, okay, well, how is a beauty company, which is what we primarily are now, how does that put kindness into the world? And we say, well, if the products that we make truly work and they deliver on what we promise that they're going to do, and you get up every morning and you look in the mirror and this moment of self-kindness is a part of your ritual, and you feel the kindness when you do this ritual, you are going to walk out the door, and the first person you meet, you're going to bestow some of that kindness upon. That's just how it works. The same, like with every business decision we make, every partnership we make, even down to our retail partners, we're like, is this the retail partner that can help us spread kindness? And so it really filters down through everything. Same, like when we're hiring someone, we're like, does this person have the skills that can help us take kindness in a different way, or approach or introduce kindness to an audience that has never been introduced to before? We do really filter every decision through how we are going to spread kindness.
Oh, I have so much to ask about that one, but I'm gonna save those thoughts in my brain housing group because I know for me personally, I've had interactions with you. I've had experiences with you from calls to emails to your team emailing me back and forth, right? So I've got to experience this kindness. And to your point, it's beautiful. It's like the serotonin starts to light up, and I'm like, oh my God, this feels so good. But for the person listening to this, that's an entrepreneur, right? We have a lot of people that are physical products brands. We also have a lot of people that are like coaches, consultants,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm. Hmm.
What are some of like the tangible real world examples of like how you guys keep kindness as your golden rule, like in the company?
Well, the way that we do it in our company is that and this started about a decade ago, as we started getting to like employee number 4, employee number 5, employee number 10, where people were less connected to the founding story. They were less connected to the farm where everything started. We actually created what we called the kindness curriculum, and
Mm.
it became part of our HR manual. And so every time a new hire would happen, they would have to go through this. It was like a 4 or 5 hour curriculum, and then every year we kind of have updates, and it became such a beautiful cultural touch point for our company that we said, you know what, this could probably be a consumer facing product. And so then we started offering the kindness curriculum to our neighbors, which is what we call all of our customers. And so people started coming from all over the country in groups of 20, sometimes strangers, sometimes, people who knew each other, to have this 1 day fully immersive kindness experience where they got to visit the farm, they saw our original store, they got to hang out with the goats, and they took our kindness curriculum. And of course, then the pandemic happened and that kind of got shut down. You might think, okay, well, that's not a really profitable portion of the company. Is it worth, trying to, get it up and running again after the pandemic? But by then, of course, the world had changed. And so we're like, okay, well, if that's not the optimal way to spread kindness, or we can't scale kindness in that way, what are the other ways to continue doing this work? And we did it in two ways. One, during the pandemic, we had established on our website the opportunity for neighbors, what we call our customers, to set up one-on-one appointments with our estheticians so that they could consult on what would be the best skincare routine for their particular concern, their particular environment. So we had that framework on our website. And we said, oh, well, we already have this framework where you can have these free consultations. Why not? Why don't we have kindness consultations? And so now we have two coaches, kindness coaches, who are psychologists, and people can schedule 30-minute kindness consultations. And this person just listens to their life and says, you know what? I'm hearing your struggles. I'm seeing your life circumstances. Here are 10 things that you can do to incorporate more kindness right now. And this is free. These are all free consultations. Mm. And then for the corporate side of the company, because during the pandemic, our company became very dispersed. Mm-hmm. Hired people all over the country, right? And they still live all over the country because everyone is working from home. And there was this new little thing called AI. I don't know if you've heard about it, George.
No, first time right now.
And there was this company called kindworks.ai. And the founder had been working in AI for probably 10 or 15 years. He started at Oxford University. And he had developed this program that integrated into whatever communication platform you were using in your company. We were using Slack. And what the AI does is every day it gives your employee or your team member a prompt on an act of kindness that they can do. And it's all customizable. Like it'll have the act of kindness. It'll tell you exactly how long this act of kindness will take, 3 seconds, 1 second, a minute, 5 minutes, whatever. So you can choose. And if you don't like the act of kindness that was randomly dished out that day, you can say, oh, give me another one. And what it learns over time is what acts of kindness resonate the most with you. And so it then starts feeding you acts of kindness that you are most likely to engage with. And also what the system does is it helps you gauge employee sentiment. And what we can tell is that the employees that become more engaged in giving acts of kindness have a more positive sentiment toward the company. Mm. And for those employees that are most directly tied to a sales figure, those people of the sales team who do more acts of kindness have higher sales. And so we are able to demonstrate that creating this culture around kindness helps us identify the best types of team members who are going to help our company grow, and by virtue of that, spread more kindness. And that doesn't mean that the people who don't, engage are not great employees. They might not just be the best employees for us and what our purpose is going to be. And that's fine. We run our company with radical transparency. Our goal is for everybody who comes into contact with our company to leave our company a better employee and maybe even a better person for the next person that they work for. And that's just how we do it.
You got a fan advocate over here. I will always from the rooftops, like, yes. And I want to ask about this because one of the things that I've said for years, and like when I scaled businesses and help people scale, and I'm always like a cheesy short liner guy because I was a Marine, right? So there's only like 3 colors of crayons in my box, right? And I'm
Hmm.
like, I just need to remember it. I'm like, the way to scale is by scaling the unscalable.
Hmm.
It's not the things that have this direct in to out. A lot of the times people struggle because it can seem so intangible,
That's right.
right? But this conversation just came up at our event, and I was like, but what I actually mean by scaling the unscalable is instead of scaling the play, you're scaling the player,
Hmm.
right? And you,
Yes.
yeah,
100%, George. And I say, yeah, I say this all the time. When you're an entrepreneur, you are the salesperson, right? You are selling your idea. When you get a little bit bigger, you hire other people, your other team members, and they become your salespeople. But the way you scale your company is when your customer becomes your salesperson.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's so interesting because like we live in a time now and a lot of things happen in your business through COVID, but now it's like everything's so transacted upon. Being a
Hmm.
decent human being is one of the best strategies and tactics that exist. And I was like, oh, I can't do it. I'm like, no, no, no. Like we're talking about saying good morning to somebody. We're talking
Correct.
about asking about their day and listening. Like we're not talking about like, giving them a sermon on the mound or like taking them out for dinner. Like we're just talking about like, hey, by the way, like how's your morning? Right. And
Okay. It's so funny that you bring that up as an example because shortly after we started incorporating this AI into our workflows, this kindness, kindworks.ai, I got served a suggestion of like reach out or say hi or do something for somebody. And at this point in our company, because we were, all working remotely, there were people who were hired that I didn't know, right? It was a junior person. And, um, and I said, oh, I feel weird, like just reaching out to this person I haven't met yet, because I think it was like give them a compliment about something they've done or I don't something like that. And I thought that just took me aback because I'm like, okay, here I am, a person that really is devoted to kindness. This is, who I am to my core. And if even I feel embarrassed or hesitant to do something, what does that mean for just the average person? And so then I started doing this thing where every morning I go for a walk.
Mhm.
And it's like a 3 mile walk, not a big deal. But I said, okay, every morning when I go for the walk, if someone passes me by and we are passing face to face, I must say good morning to them. And I realized just in the first few days, I'm like, there are a lot of people that I would have passed and been scared to say good morning to. Either I felt that they were different from me, I felt they might judge me, maybe they were in their world and isolated and I didn't want to bother them. I was embarrassed to
Mhm.
give kindness. And if you look at all of the social psychology research, that is the reason that people do not give kindness because they are embarrassed by the reaction they might get back.
Mhm.
And what I've learned over the years that I've been doing this now is that just that simple act of saying hello, good morning, whatever the salutation happens to be, has made me a kinder person and more receiving of other people's kindness too, and more accepting of all people. Because we don't realize how many snap judgments we make about people and then never let them into our orbit.
Mhm.
And it has just made me a better person. That simple act of saying good morning to every single person I pass.
Oh, yeah. I try to become best friends with every like, I'm sorry if you get stuck next to me on a flight, right? If
Yeah.
there's an opening,
Yeah.
I'm taking it, and I think it's so funny for me because so many people label me an extrovert.
Hmm.
My natural state is sitting quiet in the corner, like, I'm just
Yeah.
ready to be zen
Yeah.
mode, and they're like,
Hmm.
"What?" I was like, "No, this is a gym for me," and I'm like
Yeah.
even at the coffee shop
Well,
this morning, I got a coffee, and I was like, "Oh, by the way, your nails look beautiful," and she's like, "Oh, let me show them to you." I don't know anything about nails,
yeah.
nothing, right?
Yeah.
I chew mine. I don't even clip them. My partner gets mad at me, but it makes such a profound difference, and I remind people and I'm saying this because you guys do this so well at Beekman, but people don't do business with products, they do business with people.
Yeah,
The
for sure.
decision to do business with people is an emotional based decision predicated on how they feel about that person or those
Yeah.
people or those team members or even the brand. And it's this transactional world that I think COVID gave us a gift because it highlighted a lot of the disconnection that was out there. And now
Yeah.
it's like calling us to kindness and connection.
Well, 100%. And I think that if you look at, of course, we have to look at all business these days through the lens of social media.
Mhm.
Um, you know, all of the social media, all of social media is top of funnel. Like if you have an affiliate program, if you have an ambassador, if you just whatever, it's all top of funnel. And yes, you can get maybe a first purchase from your top of funnel, but those people who are going to become your lifeblood to your company, those people at the very bottom of the company that you make a personal connection to those people, and then they become your salespeople, and they're going to bring in much more valuable customers than anybody up at the top of their funnel.
Mhm. Mhm. It hands down. I mean, it's funny, I get insecure about this sometime, but I gave a keynote like a decade ago, and I said, "If you wanna build a company, you're guaranteed to lose on width and guaranteed to win on depth." Right? And it's really and you know this, to have a company, right? And I joke with everybody listening as a physical products, you get so obsessed about AOV on first purchase, and I'm like, "But
Hmm.
what about LTV?"
Correct.
Right?
More
Like
important. More important.
what about and right, and so I also love, like, for people listening, just tying this together because even the kindness philosophy, having a kindness call and
Hmm.
having personalized estheticians, if you were to walk into a boardroom to raise funds, they're like, "We're not doing that because that doesn't have an ROI." I'm like, "No, no, it has an ROI on the right R, which is relationships."
Yes.
And relationship ROI equals revenue ROI to your point of how you said it. And so I'm like, you're like my walking case study of like, see, see, you're going to be my like number one go-to. I'm like, you don't believe me?
Well,
Go look at Brent.
uh, well, thank you for that. But let me give a caveat because there is a slight caveat here.
Hmm.
Is that you can have a very successful company, even a very financially rewarding company, trading in those short-term relationships.
You can.
And that could be your goal. Like you could
Yes.
want like launch this company, work this product, do this, finish it, go to the next thing. I'm not making any judgments on the type of business you want to run because there are many different types of business. But if you want to create a business, as we say, a greatest of all time business, a GOAT business, you have to think about the long term.
Hmm.
And it's so critical. And you need to know these things from the beginning of what type of business person you are and what type of company you're building. We were building from the very beginning a company that was going to outlive us. And that's how we thought about everything. We were never saying, okay, a year from now we need to do this or for the first 10 years of our company, we were self-funded. So we didn't have investors that we were trying to recoup their investment dollars. Um, and I think that made a huge difference in creating laying the foundation for our company.
Well, I think it goes all the way back to what you said at the very beginning is you have to know what success looks like for you.
Yep.
Right. And I'm
You do.
so appreciative of you giving that caveat because truly it's such an independent choice and
It's a
decision where
personal thing. Yeah.
I do have clients that, just live in that world, but also that world for them, they're not taking advantage of somebody. But in that world, it's like transactional nature. It's like a mutually agreed upon transaction for
Correct.
business.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
There's no judgment. It's like that is the business that they are in and the type of business that they are growing. And when that one peters out, because the nature of those businesses are they will, then they will come up with the next
yeah.
thing. And fine.
Yeah.
That's
Well, actually,
fine.
I feel like you're speaking to my career. Then it wasn't intentional. It's like, oh, I don't want to be a paleo food blogger anymore. Like, I was in the hot market of food blogging, right? Like this was pre-Facebook, pre-Instagram. So when you had a blog, like you were the king. And I'm like, I
Yeah.
could post a recipe on the internet and help people cook and make money. And then now it's like AI is basically cooking for you. And I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
glad I'm not in that world anymore. I wanna I wanna take a quick pivot because I wanna talk about goat wisdom. And it sounded perfect because you're like, we want to be a greatest of all time business. And like you embody goats so well in everything that you do. And I want to say a couple of my one liners, the ones that I wrote down that I loved from the book. I shared one with everybody earlier, right? Taste everything. You can always spit it out later, which is a masterclass in what progress, iteration, and growth actually looks like. I don't cuss, but a certain level of goat poop is always helpful.
Hmm.
And then
Yeah.
if everyone is running in the same direction, join them. And those were a few that I'm like, yes, yes. And it took me a long time. So, what are some of your like favorite one liner, goat liners from the book? Because I know it's riddled with them.
I mean, I think it's you actually got some of the best ones. I mean, these, when we, as I said, when we started out, we were the men who stared at goats. And these really were observations we made of just looking at the goats. And we're like, why do they do that? And, animal behavior is not too dissimilar from human behavior, right? And so we all do things that are responsive. And it was so interesting to think about. Oh, we learned these from them, and they're applying to how we're trying to grow this business. And one of the great things that one of the great stories I love to tell is that on the farm we had the herd of goats, of course, and then we had this llama, and her name was Polka Spot because she had all these spots all over her, and she was a complete diva. And she just was just so supercilious. She just always seemed to be like, above everything else. And of course, because her neck was really long, she was truly above everything else. But and a lot of goat herders will have llamas to protect the herd. And your first inclination might be, oh, well, llamas are just naturally protective. They're just like to, protect the herd like sheepdogs or something. And it's not the case. Llamas are very self-interested, and they want to protect themselves. And the beauty of it, when you pair them with the goats, which are lower to the ground, is that llamas stand up tall. They are seeing everything around them. And if they see a threat or danger, they will run. And by virtue of goats being herd animals, if someone else is running, they're going to run in that same direction too. And that's how llamas historically have been fantastic goat herders, because they will keep the goats protected by virtue of self-protection. And I think that's a really great thing for all entrepreneurs to think about, because if you are growing a business that is beyond yourself, you're not a solopreneur. If you're growing a business that's going to have other employees, you have to protect yourself so that you can protect every one of those other employees that are part of your herd.
Mm.
And so that's just one of those great little anecdotes that I love, that we learned just by watching the animal behavior and thinking, why are llamas good at goat herders? And that's the reason.
I love that. I want to actually ask you to go deeper on one of those because this is something I talk about in this podcast all the time. And you said
Hmm.
you actually have to be willing to protect yourself,
Hmm.
protect those other pieces, right? Could be your customers, could be your team. What do you mean by you have to be able to protect yourself?
Well, I mean, it can go in so many different directions because, in Beekman terminology, we say self-kindness starts the ripple, right? So, I think you have to, i- i- not even just a business owner, as a manager or anybody, you have to think about your own mental and physical well-being, so that you can continue to show up for anybody who might be dependent upon you now or sometime in the future, because everything has consequences. If you are working, and granted, sometimes you are working yourself to the bone, right? You
Mhm.
are staying up all hours of the night and you are stressed out, and that's just the nature of life, not just entrepreneurial life, just life in general. But at some point you have to think, what is the damage that I'm doing, by doing this? And you have to understand what is the cutoff point.
Yeah.
And I think it's, once coming back to what we said at the beginning, once you understand what it is you're working for, what is that personal metric of success, that is so critical to know so that you can create the right balance. How much am I willing to do to achieve this. Because otherwise you are going to burn out and then nobody's going to find success.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm curious from your. By the way, I love that. I couldn't have led you into what I wanted you to say any better than that because, I talk about this all the time. And I think another piece of the GOAT wisdom that I remember is hard decisions today make for easier decisions tomorrow or something
Hmm.
along those lines.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
And I love the way that you said that. And I think it's also important because you talk about burnout. We've talked about burnout a lot on this podcast, but typically that burnout comes from, to your point, not knowing why you're doing what you're doing or where you're headed in the process.
100%. If you don't know where you're going, you're never going to get there. Right. And
Yeah.
you're just going to keep spinning the wheel and tiring yourself out.
Yeah. And one of the things I know about llamas is they're really proud too, because they don't ever cower down to you.
Oh no, they will spit, they will kick, whatever.
They fight for their
Yeah.
existence
Yes.
in a
Yeah.
very, very confident manner. And it's like, what, you don't know who I am? And like you try to be sweet. And it's like, I don't like you. I'm spitting on
Yeah.
you. I've been spit on by
Right.
one too many llamas. I live in Montana, so we have them not as many as other places. There were more in Southern California, actually, 'cause there were llama farms everywhere. But
Uh,
I think that's such a profound piece of wisdom, and the way that you answer that of like caring for yourself and also acknowledging there's seasons, right? We might
yeah.
be in a
Oh,
hard season.
yes. Okay. And I'm glad you brought up seasons too, because part of, and I think this is a problem in American culture in particular, is that we never let ourselves be content with our successes. And I think this is so critical because once you define what is your measure of success and you achieve it, be content with your success. Don't let anyone else then tell you, oh, you have to have a next chapter or you have to now accomplish something else. No, if you are truly understanding of what your personal measure of success, what brought you happiness, contentment, and you achieve it, stop. Revel in the success that you created. Because if you just stay on that cycle of letting someone else define what the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, you're going to get to the end of your life and not have reached contentment. And I'm telling everybody who's listening to this podcast, contentment is the end result.
Hmm. And I would submit, as somebody who did this and struggled a lot, and I've told this story famously on the podcast, but I was told I'd never be a New York Times bestseller, and I was, but when they threw me the party, I walked out of it because it was only 4, not number 1, right? And
Oh,
you talk about earlier, you have to be kind to yourself. That is the easiest way to be unkind. And
mhm.
from a practical application, when you don't allow yourself to revel in the success, you also don't put a checkpoint in the race. And it doesn't bring clarity for the next evolution or the next growth. And sometimes it's revel in it because I want to continue doing this. Sometimes it's revel in it, have gratitude, and open up this perspective of like, well, now I could try this or I could do this. I can go
Right.
taste something else and spit it out if I don't like it.
You could.
But it
You could.
starts with actually acknowledging ourselves. And I think it comes all the way down to the micro as well. Like I remember when I
Does.
lost 100 pounds and kept it off that time, the only difference was for the first 3 times that I gained and lost it, it was because I felt judged, I had to do this, and then I'll never forget these moments on my treadmill in the morning, reading my book, and I'm like, "Man, I did it again today. Man, I did it." And it was like it was breaking my marine brain because I was going in
Mhm.
gentle, not like, "You're gonna die, and pain is weakness leaving your body," and all these other things. But it was that being the kind to myself that breeded more
Mhm.
of it and brought more of those neural pathways, and similar to the kindness, it
That's right.
started to rewire my default.
Yes, because think about that. Like if you like say, your next book, say it doesn't come anywhere close to being on the New York Times bestseller list. Doesn't mean it's not a good book. And I think a lot of times people will be, if they have a success or they meet their ultimate success goal, you were trying to hit the New York Times list, then that prevents them from being curious or trying anything else. because they are thinking, I'm never going to meet up to them. You don't have to.
No.
You met your goal. That's fine. Anything else is gravy from this,
Yes.
you know.
Yeah, and I think, this is turning into like cheesy one-liners, but it's like it's about the process and who you become in the process.
Uh-huh.
And the result is nothing more than a like, hey, good job. Now what adjustments do you want to make? Or is this good? Right. And I think
Yeah.
too, even for you as somebody who's built a brand over 15 years, I remember early on when I had this horrible thing happened, and I think it was horrible. My first ever digital product made over $1 million in 30 days. The challenge is that after that digital product, not one other digital product for like 7 years even came close. And I remember butting up against, I shouldn't do this.
Ooh,
I
now,
shouldn't keep
George,
doing this. I should go and do another business. But yet people were like, this is helping me so much. And I had to learn that lesson the hard way because it's not always the same.
I'm curious, George, how long did it take before you could admit to the failures in a,
Oh,
in a
at,
public way?
at least a decade.
And isn't it a gift that you can?
100 it is freedom. It
Yeah.
is pure freedom. And then
Yeah.
it also rewires it from failure to feedback.
Yes.
And when
Yes.
I really started to unpack some of them, I looked at it and like, no, no, that's not failure. I didn't want to take another 6 months on the road away from my son to hit that goal that I know I could have hit. But it comes
Mm-hmm.
all the way back down to, but that's not who I want to be or what I want. And so,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's freedom on so many levels.
Yes. Okay. Now I had one other thing I want to circle back on because I know we're running out of time. You just mentioned something about one-liners.
Yep.
And the other thing that we talk about in the book, and this goes all the way back to what I said about information and wisdom from the beginning,
Yes.
is that the other thing we talk about in the book, and the reason we say it's greatest of all time wisdom, is that we look at all of these proverbs that have been around for hundreds and hundreds of years. And the reason that these are things that you have all heard, make hay while the sun shines, or, all the various proverbs, the reason that they become one liners and become maybe even dismissed um, is because they're true.
Yes.
They have been tried, they've been true, they are verified. And so never dismiss a one liner as a cliche
Mm-mm.
because that thing has been verified.
Mhm.
And is what I'm talking about with wisdom. You can get all kinds, so much information, as you know, George, getting worse with AI. Like
Yeah.
there's just information out there. Seek the wisdom. Seek the wisdom, and you can't go wrong. You cannot go wrong if you seek the wisdom.
100%. I love our parallels because I even gave a keynote and I started it one day and I was like, how many of you in the audience remember a fortune cookie that you've read any time in your life? 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 5 years ago, right? And they're all like, put their hand up. And I was like, give me an example of one. They're like, oh, got it, right? And I was like, how many of you realize that in this current moment, if you had just believed it and executed it every day, you'd be in a drastically different spot? And they're like,
Mhm.
oh, and it's the same way, and I love the way that you describe wisdom because it's so true, and, even earlier, like, talking about the human psychology of this, we're almost wired in this culture to chase dopamine, which creates
Mhm.
complexity, but at the end of the day, like, even another one, chop your own wood and it will warm you twice,
That's right.
and it also doesn't say someone's gonna come chop your wood for you when you think about it,
Correct.
right?
Because yeah,
It
that's
doesn't.
only going to warm you once
That's only
when
gonna warm
when
you
you
once.
burn it. When you
Yes.
burn it. Yeah.
And so I love the reminder of it because it's so profound and powerful. And for everybody listening too, I always love having people like Brent on the show because like to some degree you're like my Yoda, right? Like you've managed to go through two of the hardest seasons that I think an entrepreneur could exist in, which is 08, 09 and then 21 and on. And the one thing that I see as the barometer and the keel that has kept it, and not only kept it, but grown it, is everything that you've spoken about. It's the values, it's through investing in other people and helping them win, it's letting ourselves win as a byproduct. And I'm assuming it's also being drastically selective because I heard that in what you were sharing too. You're not taking every partner, every retail relationship, every person who wants in. You're filtering them through. Is this aligned with our values? Does this align with our vision? I'm
Correct.
willing to wait.
Yes.
Yeah.
And George, I want everybody who's listening to rewind the last 30 seconds when George was talking, because there was not a single thing that you said that we did that every other successful business person would not have said they did.
Yeah.
And so just in that 30 seconds was the crystallization of this entire conversation.
Mm.
Every person who has had long-term sustainable success will go back to those exact same principles. There's nothing special about us. We did it. We lived by it. And so did every other successful person.
Mm. I also love your humility. I love it. It looks really, really good on you. I think there's probably goat wisdom in there somewhere about, yes, you can know it as information, but to know it as wisdom is to embody it and to be
Mm,
there. And
mm.
that is
Wow.
the USP, which is executing it, but allowing those values to come in, right? Like you can imagine the amount of emails I get every day or people on the podcast. And like when I'm talking to Kendall, I'm like, can we just be email friends? Like, do I have an email pen pal in like 2025? It's clear, it's communicative, it's empathetic, it's compassionate, it's helpful. And so I want to give you your flowers. And Goat Wisdom, by the way, for everybody, the book is Goat Wisdom. I'm gonna have everything linked in the show notes because I'm in it and I love it. And truthfully, I think the way that you summarized wisdom is the best way to think about learning and like take one of these things, even if it was one of the ones that we said today, because I just finished an event. And one of the things that I heard, I do this exercise you'll probably like, it's called the stinky fish.
Mm,
And when everybody gets into the room before I start the event, I talk about all the false beliefs and stories
mm,
we tell ourselves that prevent us from trying something new. And I make us all write them down and speak them out loud. And then anyone that landed, you have to go +1. And we had a sheet that
mm.
was like, I'm not good enough. I can't figure it out. I haven't made it far enough, XYZ. And it's not being kind to yourself. But when you release those things, it creates the space to go take a bite of something because you can always spit it out if you don't like it. But the
That's right.
only way to learn is to take the bite.
That's right.
And
And
so,
be radically transparent, including with yourself.
yes. Oh, that's a
Yeah.
that's a podcast in its own right of like loving the reflection in the mirror
Hmm.
and being willing to talk to it like your best friend,
Correct.
because
Correct.
that is huge and I can feel that from you too. And so there is an audiobook, just so everybody knows, because that's what I'm listening to. It's great. I'm also going to get a copy because I love yellow books for some reason. They really hit that part of my brain. You nailed it. It's my other favorite book is The Catalyst by Jonah Berger, and it's
Oh,
bright yellow cover, and
yeah.
I love it. So they're going on the shelf together. You know, I want to just I want to land the plane. Obviously, actually, I'm just going to do this for you. I know. So number one, everybody go stalk the ever living crap out of Brent and everything. Number one is Beekman 1802. I literally, as a guy who helps scale e-commerce, Brent will tell you, I got on a call with him. I'm like, I love what you're doing. This is amazing. This is amazing. It is it belongs in a gallery of how to do things right with values. That's Beekman 1802. And there's so many incredible products on there that I'm working on getting my partner to use as well. So that's there. Then you have Goat Wisdom, which is the book. It's on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, everywhere everyone's sold, including the audiobook. And I will say this before I end the show, it doesn't listen or read itself. But if you pick it up and apply a part of that wisdom and keep it in practice, it will work really, really well. And there's a question I like to ask everybody, and I'm really, really excited to hear your answer. I want you to imagine that everybody listening to this forgot everything that we talked about. They got Men in Blacked really, really hard with that little memory erasing device. And you have the ability to tattoo any wisdom you want into their soul that they're going to keep with them forever and operate by. And I'm curious if you had the opportunity to just speak wisdom into everybody for a minute or two that are all entrepreneurs, that are all incredible human beings that listen to this show, that probably resonate deeply with kindness. What would your tattoo wisdom be that you would want to leave on their soul?
Well, hopefully this is easy to remember so they don't forget it this time around. I would say that the best leaders are goat farmers
Mm,
because you will raise a herd of goats around you. And that's whether it's your team members, whether it's your partnerships, whatever. Raise a herd of greatest of all times around you, and you will become the greatest of all time.
Mm.
So be a goat farmer. Everybody should be a goat farmer. That's what they need to remember.
I couldn't have said it better. And by the way, those goats, the first one is shepherding yourself so that you can be a good steward of those goats. The second are the people in your life that see and believe in your vision that will help you bring it to life, which isn't just your team. That is also your friends and your
Hmm.
church and your
Hmm.
partners and your family. And then the byproduct of those two working together is you go apply it to your customers and being good goat herders. And by the way, Brent, I feel like I should have worn my overalls today. I have overalls. I live in Montana. I have a lot of friends with goats, and I might go stare at a goat for a day or two just to see what wisdom I can glean.
Oh, yeah. Well, that'd be a great teaser for this podcast.
It would be. And I literally can drive up the street to 3 people's houses and be like, "Hey, I need the goats for a little while, and, I'm just gonna go record some content." And so, brother, thank you. Just thank you for your wisdom, for your insight, for taking the time and being kind to me and sharing with everybody because we know you don't have a company to run or anything like that. So I genuinely, from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate everything that you shared.
And likewise, thanks for the gift of your time and your knowledge as well.
Yeah, of course. And, for everybody listening, I'm not gonna summarize this one like I normally do because he did it so well. But whatever that thing is for you today, let this podcast be the sign to be worth it and look at it and explore it. Whether it's be kind to yourself, whether it's grab a stranger off the street and compliment them, whether it's to ask yourself one of these questions, whether it's to take a bite of something that you've been avoiding, knowing that you can spit it out now, whatever that is, maybe it's visiting your values, maybe it's finding some wisdom and implementing it, maybe it's actually sitting down again and being like, what does success look like for me? But either way, this episode is loaded with antidotes that you can pop into, you can find the answer to, and then you can apply to your life and business. Because some of my proverbs that I love is it's not the one who plants the seeds that gets the harvest, it's the one that tends to the garden. And those things are the things that will create those results that we want. And so use Brent as an example. I'm here to support you. His companies are amazing. His book is amazing. And most importantly, I just want you to know you should do it because you're worth it and there isn't another you. And so the more you do this, the bigger your vision and the bigger your impact becomes on all the goats on your farm. And so we love you. We will either see you in the next episode or you will hear me in your earballs. But either way, we're done.